it is better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. If you've been pursuing comfort and convenience, you've given up your sovereignty.
Here at Full Stack, we talk a lot about sovereignty, and there's a big mindset that comes with sovereignty. And one of the things that I've noticed for myself as I've taken logistical steps for my sovereignty, sovereignty at one level is like psycho-emotional and how I see myself in the world, and having my own authority as I show up in the world, and I lead myself, and I'm really an adult. I kind of see being an adult and being sovereign as synonymous, and which means there's not many adults running around, but
Right.
There's these different steps that we can take logistically. And one of these is exactly what you're talking about. You've turned your food system for you personally, and what you're working on to provide for everybody else is to provide sovereignty for the food system.
Yep.
And there's something I've noticed that when I make a change in my environment and how a system works, and I gain more sovereignty, I actually get a mental upgrade. I actually experience it in my whole nervous system upgrades, and I start viewing the world differently, and my experience of other people that maybe some people I used to hold them, put them on a pedestal, or view them as like maybe they were a little scary, or certain situations are a little scary, and then I find some level of sovereignty in my life internally and externally. Sometimes one shifts the other, and it's been difficult for me to predict what that's going to look like. What does it mean for somebody who says, you know what, I'm going to take sovereignty over my food. I'm going to participate in a decentralized food system. I want to hear about what you're creating, and what does that do for somebody, and what does it do for their family?
Yeah, that's a really great question. There's a distinction between food security and food sovereignty. Food security is simply just having something to eat and put in your belly. MREs are food security. Doesn't mean they're good for you, right? Fake lab-grown meat is food security, because if I'm not going to starve to death, I may chronically ill down the road if I eat too much of this, but in this window of time when I need to put something in my stomach, lab-grown meat is food security. But food sovereignty is your right or your ability to choose what you want to eat, or how you want to source it, right? So there's a big difference between food security and food sovereignty.
This is incredibly fascinating to me right now. I just landed. And that if you look at the role of like any type of government throughout all of history, the number one reason any type of government system gets set up is to create security. The entire role is like, those guys out over on that side, they want to rape and pillage you. You know what? Give us 10, 20%. We'll set up security, and we'll ensure. And then if there's some disputes internally, we'll help you guys work that out. And we'll. That is at the core, the whole point of government. That's
Yep.
why people value it. Now, it does tend to creep and get into weird other things, but when you get down to like the nuts and bolts, that's the origin of government, right?
Yeah.
And if you look at what people want from government over time, it's always more security.
Yep.
In some way.
Yeah.
Whatever like they're imagining they want to be provided for them is coming from fear. No one goes to the government and asks for something that isn't fear-based in some way.
Yep.
And so the fact that the government is so intertwined, and people want the government to be so intertwined in the food system, and now you're talking about food security versus food sovereignty, is the thing about the word sovereignty is by its nature, no one could ever give it to you.
That's right.
It has to be self-realized.
Yep.
Sovereignty is
I
not
also feel
something
like-
that I can gift anybody.
I feel like the less sovereignty, in order to get more security, you have to give up sovereignty. Like there's a trade-off for that security, much like privacy, more privacy, less.
Well, I would
security.
say if you want to outsource the security, true. But
True.
ultimate security comes from sovereignty. Ultimate security. The security that everyone wants to experience comes from sovereignty, but there's somebody on the outside saying, I'll give you what you're looking for. And they've lived their entire lives looking to an external authority to make them feel safe, and it's never happened.
Yeah.
The illusion of security.
Who walks around
The illusion.
feeling ultimately secure? The only people I know that are ultimately secure, and these are very peaceful people, by the way. These are people that are just like Zen monks. The only people that have that, they own their own inner security. It's created for them through through themselves, not because whatever. And so like the whole, like, I've thought about this whole trade-off thing. It's just a fucking lie.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an illusion.
Yeah. Touche.
Yeah, it's like it is better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. The peace you'll have as a warrior in a garden versus being a gardener that's all of a sudden like, oh shit, bullets are flying. Like, they didn't create their own sovereignty. And just like you were talking about, like you want more safety. We're going to sell you that safety comes from security that we can provide you, but we need to have access to all of your private data. That's how we're going to keep you secure. We're going to monitor you. We're going to do all of those things. And yet the ones who, and I think it's tied to comfort and convenience, right? Because the ones who have avoided comfort and convenience, in my experience, seem to have the understanding of the value of sovereignty. I'm going to work for it myself. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to do the things that are uncomfortable, the things that nobody else wants to. And guess what? I feel really secure because I can handle whatever comes my way. If you've been pursuing comfort and convenience, you've given up your sovereignty. And so now you rely on somebody else to provide it for you. You know, it's like when we raise our own meat chickens. The state change that we had after that first year of processing our own meat birds when we knew nothing, like never done it before. Now we've got, a bunch of chickens that we have to process and put in our fridge. It wasn't easy, but when it was done, the confidence we had. And so the next year we doubled our number of birds. And last year we doubled it again. And we just placed an order. We got 60 birds coming in May. We raise our own meat birds. We have sovereignty around that. We've got our own garden. The first year our garden sucked ass. The second year all we had were tomatoes. Last year we got a variety, we even grew potatoes. The amount of pride and excitement we had from gaining that, was it easy? Hell no. I think I posted a video. I had just got home from Washington, D.C., and I had like 12 hours. Actually, it wasn't even 12 hours. I called my buddy who builds a moon phase calendar on like the old ways of how they farmed and when to plant on certain moon phases. And I was like, when does this phase end? Because he's like, you got to get the potatoes in before it ends. And I called him. He's like, you have until 5 p.m. today. And I'm like, no way. I'm like, shit. We went to work and I literally got the last potato planted by like 3:30. And I'm like, we made the calendar and we had a great harvest, especially for our first attempt. It was uncomfortable. It wasn't convenient. It required a lot of energy, a lot of effort, but the payoff. And do I have enough potatoes to last me the winter? Hell no, I ain't good. I just did it with my first year, But next year, you better believe we're going to have twice the length of potato rows, and know that we're going to have a lot more in our crawl space, our basement, to feed ourselves through whatever the next winter brings.
Yeah, so, I mean, how's that feel as a husband and father?
Oh, dude, our role is to protect, provide, and preside. The providing side of knowing that, like, I didn't have, there's a different feeling from buying your family's food than from sitting down to a meal that you delivered that from start to finish. There's nothing that replaces that. The confidence, you've got girl dad hat. I got 3 daughters. So that pressure probably weighs even more, right? Because, there's some generational gender roles ideas in my head, but I want to provide for my children. I got, my girls are out there working with us, but as a dad of girls, to know, like, this is what we're doing. Also, as a dad of girls, what do you think they're going to be looking for in their relationships? Somebody that can provide the way dad provided. And that's probably more valuable for their long-term happiness than anything. The example that I'm setting.